Spectrovision Radio.
Welcome to Gods, Ghosts, and UFOs, the biggest podcast in the universe. We talk about all the things that people said weren't real. And I'm joined by my friends and co-hosts, Mallory Ever Ready Everton and Jordan, not that Jordan Peterson. And how are you guys doing?
I'm doing so good,
I'm
Tom.
doing well.
Any weird things happen lately?
Weird things are always happening. Before you joined the call and before we started recording, Mallory and I were talking about how we just seem to be living by grace. You know, having the Kickstarter not get funded being this like actually really big advantage for us, because we realized that we didn't have the bandwidth or the capacity to make the show that we pitched if we had made the funding that we were asking for. And so instead we get to do it this way. We get to do it the way that we are doing it now, and feeling really, really good about that, and being like, that's definitely not something that I could have planned. I'm not sure how that works mechanically, but it does seem to work. And
Okay,
so
can I lay some Alan Watts on you?
Yes.
Always, you have to. Every episode, you're required to lay
He's
Alan
like,
Watts on
it's
us.
like dancing to music, right? You go with the flow. So when you're dancing, you don't rush, right? And you don't dawdle. You don't drag. You move to the tempo. You know,
Yeah.
we're here because we're here because we're here.
Amen to that.
I'm always glad to be with you guys.
Me too.
Same.
Yeah.
Where I'm kind of coming from this week is I went and did a 7-day silent retreat, and then
Yeah.
I came back and immediately got the flu and I had a fever for like 5 days.
We've
And-
been
and
crisis.
Yeah. So I won't lie. I have been sorting through some kind of serious. I'm tempted to use the word stressful, but when you sit in silence for that long, sometimes shit gets weird. And so
I never have. I've never shut up.
Yeah.
I was
I am so
talking in
far
the
from having
womb.
done anything. Yeah.
You know, a lot comes up in that silence, and there's always something to sort through. So I feel like I definitely have some things to ponder about reality and consciousness, and it's good for me. I'll just say it's been strange, but it's been good for me. That's
Can I
my-
vote that we do an episode, maybe our next episode, that is just a download of Mallory's experience? Like, I would love to know what Mallory went through in that 7-day silent retreat.
The truth is that, and we don't have to put this in if we'd like to actually talk about it, but my first experience was very different. And so I didn't really know what to go, because I've done 2 of these now. And the first time I did one, it was like a complete detox of many things that I didn't realize I was addicted to. Like watching or listening or reading something while I was eating. Anything, all the time. Like I never had a meal in silence. And then you go on a 7-day silent retreat and you sit at tables with people and no one speaks, and you're suddenly like, oh, eating is a religious experience. Like it's a gratitude practice that we miss because we're literally eating we're eating a burrito in the car while we yell at someone on the phone. You know what I mean? Like, and anyway, so the first experience was like I came out feeling like reborn, like I was Gandalf the White. Like, and now I'm Mallory, but just so much healthier. And this time I came out feeling all shaken up, like a soda that would explode into space, or like Mrs. Potato Head and all the pieces are in the wrong places. But it's strange how, like, you know, they say a change is as good as a rest, and it's like, actually I feel kind of refreshed because my mind feels like it was turned inside out. So we should talk about it at some point.
Do you guys want to just scrap the topics we had for today and just go
fuck
deeper
it,
into
you
this?
know.
I kind of feel like
I'm kind of into the topics, but like I would like to.
I am too, and
I would like to do a
this'll keep.
download of Mal's
This will
experience.
keep.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're going to do these topics, so let's do these topics.
Okay.
And today we're talking about
Yeah.
psychic. We're talking about psychic visions of the Lost Ark and the CIA and asteroids full of DNA. But first, Mal, I think you've got something about a dinosaur in the Congo that I'd like to hear more about.
Yeah, this one's hot off the press. An article from IFL Science was published last week. titled "Sightings of the legendary Mokele-mbembe dinosaur of the Congo are increasing. What's going on?" So, for those who might not be familiar with the Mokele-mbembe, it's a water-dwelling, long-necked dinosaur believed to be in the Congo Basin, which is the Earth's second largest rainforest. And it means, Mokele-mbembe means one who stops the flow of rivers. So this creature was put on the radar of European explorers back in the early 1900s by the Bantu people. And obviously, like, there are books written about hidden dinosaurs. We have things like Jurassic Park that really keep this alive. But what's interesting about this moment is the increase in sightings, because over the past century, they have become less and less common. And then suddenly we're having what is really normal with cryptid sightings, which is they tend to come in clusters, which makes perfect sense, right? You hear that somebody who knew somebody, or you read some article that says somebody in your neighborhood saw this thing, and then that's in your brain, and then you're more likely, when a trick of the light, or a snake or a soft-shelled turtle looks a little weird, to think it's the Mokele-mbembe. And there's a lot of interesting things going on here. The dream is what they call the prehistoric survivor paradigm, which is basically like something that's we only know as a fossil still exists. And there are cases where this has happened, like the coelacanth, which is a lobe-finned deep sea fish. And it's sometimes called a living fossil because it was previously thought to be extinct. And then there are things like, honestly, like the giant squid or the Komodo dragon or platypuses, even gorillas, that were at one point cryptids. Like, they were just hearsay, local hearsay, and then they turn out to exist. So there could be something going on. There could be something like that happening. But one of the issues with the prehistoric survivor paradigm, especially when it comes to myths that started and then became more popular because of European colonizers, essentially, is that you have to put everything through a pretty intense, like, racism and colonization filter when you're thinking about, okay, so how, like, one of the quotes from a Popular Mechanics article that also came out last week on the same topic was, even then, African facts were far less appealing than European discoveries. Which is like, so things that are just facts to these local people aren't as interesting as a European coming in saying, "I've discovered this." And it's like, yeah. Can we understand how problematic it is to think like the Congo is so prehistoric? And, there's a lot to work through there, and a lot of interesting things. The most likely explanation, and maybe it's a partial explanation, maybe there could be more than one thing going on, we kind of have to keep our minds open, I think, is just mass and super depressing deforestation. There was a Czech conservationist named Laura Vlachova. She summed it up pretty well for the National Geographic. She said, "In bigger settlements where habitats are being pushed into and people aren't used to seeing large animals, they're suddenly encountering them all the time. It's these people who tell me they've seen the Mokele-mbembe." I think what it really shows is how folklore is starting to reflect the reality of a shrinking ecosystem. So it's kind of depressing, but it also makes a lot of sense, and it's still important. I think that's what I like most about cryptids in the conversation, because it doesn't matter what's actually happening. There's always something really interesting happening with the human psychology involved and sort of the group psychology and folklore.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Whose sightings are these? And what is being described?
Yeah. Neither of the articles really get into who is seeing them. So as far as like ideas about like, possible colonization issues, I couldn't even speak to that.
Well, no, I'm looking at it from a Charles Fort viewpoint, which is just data aggregation, where it's just like, forget all the commentary about what people might want. Blah, blah, blah. It's just like, who said they saw it? When did they say they saw it? What did they describe they saw or heard? And then you collect all that, and it can happen over, at least 100 years, probably longer. I'm assuming that the native Aboriginal people told the colonizers about this thing, and they had a name for it, and they, blah, blah, blah. The story I heard is that someone showed them a picture of a sauropod dinosaur, and they're like, yeah, that's it. Yeah, so you guys know it too, And now people are seeing it again. What are they saying? What's the consistency? What are the consistent through lines with respect to the data? That's what interests me. And if they're like, the sightings are increasing, well, sure, someone's looking at a stick, or I don't know. Of course.
Sure.
But you can those things will start to become almost statistical outliers if you just collect the data.
I mean, I didn't do insane amounts of research about who wrote these exactly, but it doesn't seem like people who have any data, which is one of the most frustrating things about this topic.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to find. And that's why you have to sort of take a high level view and just be interested in, okay, what's happening here? Like, one of my favorite lines from the IFL Science article that was written was, as we know, there is much of our planet that we're still exploring. So the possibility of discovering some unknown species that has eluded us is a thrilling prospect, especially in a world that can sometimes feel mundane, disenchanted, and increasingly small. It is possible that this sense of wonder, of the possibility of cryptids, offers some relief from this feeling. And I would argue that this sense of wonder, of the possibility of cryptids, offers relief from many bad feelings. And so,
I would agree.
At the very least, I'm interested in that because of this. And that, I think, is worth our time. Wonder
we need more of? We need more glib patrician dismissals of the enchanted world. I just don't think there's been enough of that. I think oh, you guys, you just want to feel better, you little guys, and your little
all right, Tom, you're hitting my react pretty much exactly. I know.
Anyone who thinks the world is not enchanted is a benighted ass.
All right, I don't need to say what I prepared then.
Anyway, I'm sorry, Jordan.
No,
I'm sorry.
No. I
had an outburst.
But that's your outburst is my outburst. But you just gave it way better language than I could have. Because I was just going to say that it seems like this author is taking this like very familiar tone of superiority. Like, a lot of people, not me, like to believe this sort of thing to recapture a sense of wonder in an increasingly disenchanted world. Yeah, isn't that so cute? But the thing is,
trying to make themselves feel better?
People do that, and that is true. But that doesn't. What I want to shout back is like, that doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean that like people are gullible and stupid, and the smart ones know that there's no such thing as magic. It means that people have a natural sense that things are much more mystical than they've been told, and they keep trying to get their arms around it. No matter how many times the truth just slips out of reach, and the experts keep coming back and saying, you don't know what you're talking about. And I think this is why I love the whole cryptid conversation so much, no matter which cryptid we're talking about, is because it reminds me that people in general are way less persuaded by this established dogma that all these like sort of smug, small-minded experts would have maybe prefer. And, you can't stamp out the wonder. You can't kill the innate human suspicion that we live in a world of magic.
Right, the thing I think that people don't grasp in their stampede toward cognitive closure and some feeling of certainty or control is that science itself, in all its expressions, only speaks to us in terms of probabilities. There is no certainty there, ever. Yeah. There's no certainty in your cancer diagnosis. There's no certainty in fucking gravity, that's just not how it works. And there's always room for whatever improvement, learning something new, changing a paradigm, having a hypothesis turn into a theory, having a hypothesis be, discarded. And we all live on that spectrum of probability. So is it only legitimate in terms of, discovery of new species if we find another fucking beetle? Is it another insect? Oh, look, here's the 6 millionth beetle we found. Is that legit, or can it be just something like altogether more, I don't know, fun and potentially rideable, like a giant sauropod in a river? You could saddle it up and rideable. You know what I'm saying? What's funny to me is that when I was young in the previous century, all depictions of sauropods, like in the early days, they were all standing in ponds. Because scientists were like, well, fuck, they're too fucking heavy. They couldn't support their own body weight. So therefore, they had to always stand in water. And then later they're like, never mind, we were wrong, whatever, sorry. And then, but this thing is like, he's still on the 1950s paradigm of like standing in water.
Guess this thing, it's basically just the Congo version of the Loch Ness Monster.
It really is,
Yeah.
which is, it's a very similar conversation. It's a long-necked dinosaur. There are many things in water, like snakes or seals or logs that can look like a long-necked dinosaur
and
for
long-necked,
a couple of seconds.
Yeah, that's true. And, whale dicks.
Well, of course, a whale penis. That's very
I'm,
likely in the rivers and swamps of the Congo, no? Just a loose, horny orca.
One never knows. Horny orcas can really cover some ground.
Tom, speaking of horny orcas, talk to us about the CIA.
There we go.
Here's interesting. My favorite segue. Here's interesting. I actually had a moment of synchronicity with respect to this article because I was just today listening to the excellent Cosmosis podcast, right, with the friend of the show, right, Kelly Chase, and it was they played a talk by a professor at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington, Professor Diana Walsh-Pasulka, who is a religious studies professor who somehow got hoovered up into UFO stuff and has written a number of very fascinating books. And what she does is she studies Catholic Church ascension dogma, where people are taken up. And she realized, both in the imagery and the stories, not only that it bears a striking resemblance to experiencer narratives, what people used to call abductions, right? But moreover, the church itself as an institution has changed these stories. If you go back to Francis of Assisi in the 13th century, or other saints who talked about being taken up, by non-human creatures and, sometimes hurt or injured by them, or having undergone traumatic experiences, what Francis of Assisi described was like had 6 wings, and he called it a seraphim, and it was not a pleasant experience for him, but he was given gifts thereby. Meanwhile, or afterwards, the Catholic Church just turned it into Jesus. He met Jesus. Right, but that's not. It's like,
easier to swallow.
It's just you just like do a
an unpleasant seraphim. We're just gonna say it was Jesus.
Or just Jesus. Just put a Jesus face on front of whatever he saw. And so I'm like, okay, seraphim, and this idea of seraphim and the winged, angel adjacent thing has been around a long time. I think it is an entity in Jewish mysticism, and then I'm tasked with talking about this news article published in Forbes.
Okay.
Called Psychics CIA.
Forbes.
Yeah. Psychic CIA and the Ark of the Covenant collide in declassified document. What's funny about this is that this document was declassified 25 years ago. So who knows about that? And it was a project called a CIA project called Project Sunstreak, which apparently had to do with remote viewing. Now, we all know that the CIA probably still is, heavy into remote viewing. And not only that, remote viewing itself has a very solid history of accuracy, which is probably why they're still doing it. So what they called it was, psychoenergetics. It's remote viewing. So what they do is they'll give someone information that makes no sense to them, the viewer, just whatever, coordinates, just nothing, just numbers. And then they just sort of concentrate and describe the images. Well, that's what a person did, given, I don't know, coordinates or something. And this remote viewer described, apparently, the Ark of the Covenant. And there's actually quotes what this person wrote down, and they drew a picture as well. The session summary for the Ark includes the subject's description of the target as a container with another container inside. Quote, the target is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver. The target was said to be located in the Middle East with mosque domes nearby. Quote, the target is hidden, underground, dark and wet were all aspects of the location of the target. The test subject said the object had the purpose of bringing people together and was connected to, quote, ceremony, memory, homage, and the resurrection with an aspect of spirituality. The target was supposedly protected and could only be opened by those authorized to do so. Quote, individuals opening the container by prying or striking are destroyed by the container's protectors through the use of a power unknown to us. A crude illustration in the document shows a single winged feature, though it looks more like a bird than a cherub, and the remote viewer wrote seraphim. Now, anyone who's seen Indiana Jones and the Ark of the Covenant knows what we're talking about here. And if I had to guess why this has suddenly reappeared in the zeitgeist, is that we all know, thanks to Steven Spielberg, that the Ark of the Covenant has Nazi face melting properties. And I think that, it would be great to utilize Nazi face melting technology now more than ever,
Yeah.
And it's like, the old Zen koan, if you meet a Buddha on the road, kill him, and so he can hurry to nirvana. And if you meet a Nazi, melt his face. So I don't know. But this seraphim idea, and there are apparently these winged creatures. Now, the Ark this is Exodus, right? This is the Old Testament. So it's not even really a Christian thing. It's Moses, right? And there's been a lot of theories about the Ark being some sort of, I don't know, power device. We don't know. But apparently the CIA may have found it through remote viewing.
This is sort of a Marshall McLuhan moment for me. The medium is the message. The fact that the article came out is more important to me than what the article says. Like you mentioned, like this was declassified 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, why are we hearing about it now? Well, I think we're hearing about it now because a lot more people are convinced that remote viewing is real. And if you want to discredit something, how do you do it? Well, you trot out a story that is very easily falsifiable. So in this case, we have a story about the Ark of the Covenant being remote viewed by someone several years after a giant blockbuster movie by Spielberg came out with very many of the same features. Now, whether or not this remote viewing session was legitimate, whether or not this person actually saw things that were true or real, who knows? We don't know. And one of the things that's important to note about things like remote viewing is that it takes a lot of important kind of controlling factors. It's very hard to validate this stuff. You can do it, but it requires a lot of structure and a lot of you have to do a lot of things to ensure that the information you're getting from a remote viewing session is worth something. And I think that in this case, we are given a case in this article, once again, that was declassified 25 years ago, where none of those controls are evident, at least in the version of the story we're given in this article. And so it's very, very easy to say, oh, well, this is probably bullcrap. It's very easy to see, oh, well, obviously, this person had seen the movie, everyone had seen the movie. And even if they hadn't seen the movie, it's 100% in the cultural zeitgeist. So this person is just, if you're told to do remote viewing, which is very, very hard to do without being polluted by your own thoughts and ideas, it's very, very hard. That's one of the things about remote viewing is that to do it right, you have to be very good at letting go of all of your own subconscious crap. Why did the CIA decide to declassify this? Well, it's because there was nothing. It was a nothing burger. So they decided to declassify it. So then, but I would like us to take a step back farther and say, why is Forbes publishing an article about this now? It's because people realize that remote viewing is real and it actually can work. And this is something that maybe makes people uncomfortable. I'm not suggesting, I have no idea who made this decision, but it's someone somewhere said, it'd be great is for us to run an article about that document that was declassified 25 years ago that made about this,
I saw something on TikTok.
Yeah, like a bullcrap remote viewing story. And then what this article does, and the purpose of this kind of thing often is to just sort of turn public attention off toward it. It's oh, well, I know what that is. It's bullcrap. Because if you can prove that one instance of a thing is bullcrap, it's very easy for people to just sort of through inductive reasoning say, well, then all the cases around this phenomena are bullcrap. It sucks. This article to me is like, it's anti-interesting. It's literally designed to make people less interested in the subject.
I like this take. I'm really curious about what the deepest level of like, what is the actual force that would cause that? You know what I mean? Like, is it humans' desire for certainty enough that it's like, oh, I know what that is. That's bull crap. Let's all point at that and call it bull crap. You know what I mean? Versus, because I hear what you're saying. Like the likelihood that somebody was like, yeah, and after this, everyone's going to be like, remote viewing is legitimate. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Literally,
no one thought
the
that.
title
No
is
one thought that.
Psychic CIA and the Ark of the Covenant. It's like all this stuff that you don't trust and you think it's bullshit. Like, like it's right in the title. So, but where do you think the impetus is really coming from? Is it just the sort of like clap down of the, I don't know, collective conscious being like, let's keep reality really small, everybody. Let's point at the weirdo. You know what I mean? What is
well,
that?
I mean, like, so we know it goes both ways, right? There is a sort of top-down conspiratorial way of managing information. We know that stuff. We know that stuff happens. Like, it's stupid to deny that that stuff happens. But we also know that it doesn't always happen. And that if you do it effectively enough in the right times and the right places for the right things, you don't need to do it hardly at all, because then it just happens on its own. So I would say the most likely possibility for this article is that somebody, the author probably, because most of the stuff that gets written for these publications is submissions by independent journalists who are like, I need to freaking eat. So please buy this story from me so that I can, pay rent. And so an independent journalist said, I'm seeing a lot of bullcrap about remote viewing, and dug up this thing and said, look at this story about remote viewing that I think it's got a lot of clickbaity things that I can put in the title, and I can write it this way because and it's legitimate. And I think this came from a place of personal materialistic conviction. And this person wanted to put this out because they thought, A, it would be really successful, it would get a lot of clicks, and B, it reinforced their sort of personal narrative. So, yeah, I don't think that you needed a conspiracy to get this thing out. I think the conspiracy happened a long time ago. And so, this is just sort of, culture operating on its own self-reinforcing paradigms.
Okay, I actually have a counterpoint to that.
Okay.
Without disputing necessarily the motivation behind Forbes or the writer who wrote this piece, putting this stuff out there brings awareness to it and can be inducement for people to look a little bit more closely. Two things. Remote viewing is a very interesting topic, one that I had entirely dismissed as a huge waste of government resources that, whatever, back in the day before I actually started paying a bit more attention to it and to its results, and was like, wow, okay. That's a thing. Yeah. And you don't need to be a psychic person or have special abilities, apparently, in order to do it. So that's worth learning more about. The other thing is ancient technology is huge. Oh, look, we just discovered 5-story city under the pyramids, maybe, I guess it's possible. And with maybe there were giant power generators. I don't know. Ark of the Covenant has had the same sort of fascination for people, this very materialist thing, right? That can sort of do like magic, or this idea that, there have been civilizations before us that have been technologically advanced. It's not just one linear line of progression. The Ark of the Covenant is not necessarily just a sort of a biblical or a pop culture curiosity. A lot of people have spent a lot of time trying to figure out, well, why, what was the purpose of this thing? What was it used for? Apparently, it was like a mobile God phone. It had a thing called the mercy seat in Exodus.
Funny, I always thought of it as just a very, very low density data thumb drive.
Maybe.
Who knows?
10 commandments in a giant box that takes a bunch of people to carry around.
So God's telling them to build it, right, in Exodus, and make it out of this wood and gold and silver, the whole bit, and the 2 rings and the 2 seraphim. Seraphim, the cherubim, shall stretch forth their wings on high, covering the mercy seat with their wings. And thou shalt put the mercy seat above upon the ark, and in the ark thou shalt put the testimony that I give to thee, and there I will meet with thee, and I will commune with thee from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubims which are upon the ark of the testimony, of all the things which I will give thee in commandment unto the children of Israel. So it was a like you said, a way of storing information, basically, but also a way of communing. So a lot of people naturally will think of it as tech, and have thought of it as tech.
I mean, the definition of technology does not ever, it doesn't have to exclude mystical things either. Like, because when we say mystical, all we're saying is something that we don't understand yet. That's it. And so, I'm
Quantum
comfortable
theory.
calling. Yeah.
I mean,
Try to explain this to someone 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
It's mystical.
It's a mercy
totally
seat.
Mystical.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Our
not
phones are a
comfortable.
mercy seat.
Butt dialing
I
from because of my mercy seat.
I don't get those vibes from that device. This article does to me seem like a cultural artifact, or I should say an emergent cultural artifact. It's something that came out of what is very zeitgeisty right now. People are talking about the CIA, people are talking about remote viewing, and people are always going to be talking about the Ark of the Covenant because it's just perennially interesting. I think my only issue with it is that it is, whether consciously or unconsciously, it is cherry picked. So it is cherry picked in a way that makes remote viewing seem kind of stupid. Like Tom said, if you go down the rabbit hole, it's not stupid. Like, remote viewing is legitimate. There's a lot there. And so for none of that to be mentioned in the article, right? Sort of, to me, it's, it speaks a little bit more loudly than what actually is in the article.
But the themes of revelation, knowledge that is being hidden from us by governmental agencies, people already know is happening. If they think about it with respect to recovered, crashes, UAP crashes or whatever, or JFK assassination, like, we know that there's things that we don't know. And we know that there are technologies available to some that are not available to all, or knowledge that's available to some that is not available to all. And I think a lot of people that's in the back of our minds, I think.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to move on to DNA asteroids.
Please. Let's go.
I mean, I love this. I love this story too. I love it partly because of how little there is in it. It says, according to recent findings published in Nature, NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission has made a significant discovery that increases the likelihood of extraterrestrial life. After collecting samples from asteroid Bennu in 2020, researchers found all 5 nucleobases for DNA and RNA, along with minerals essential to life and amino acids. The samples also showed evidence of ancient liquid water, phosphates, and clay, which are all critical components for life as we know it. NASA's Nikki Fox noted that while they didn't discover life itself, the findings suggest that conditions necessary for life were likely widespread across the early solar system. I'm curious what you guys... I have so many opinions about this, but I want to hear what you guys have to say first.
I mean, is it bad that I'm immediately annoyed? Like,
say more.
I feel like I'm just annoyed because I'm like, oh, duh. I don't understand why it's news. It just, for us, it just feels like, and I guess I'm just too deep at this point. I've just been reading too much about aliens for too many years now that I'm like, yeah, water on an asteroid. That's so surprising. It just feels insane to me. It's insane sometimes that, like, this, like you were saying, this tiny little morsel of information that is so unremarkable in the face of some of the other things that have presented about life on other planets and life outside of humans, or just what exists on Earth that we know of and that we understand. It's just crazy to me that they can exist at the same time. And it makes my brain, like, it stresses me out. It's like a type of gaslighting. It's like, I feel like I'm being gaslit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do. And I think there's this constant, it almost feels Sisyphean at this point, this constant effort to try to get to an explanation for how life started, without any intention for starting life. And it's tough because this is one of those turtles all the way down questions where it's like, okay, so for a long time, one of the most popular theories was like, well, Earth was seeded with very simple single cellular organisms. But then that just punts the question of how that, like, where did those come from? If they were seeded here, where do they develop somewhere else? And it's kind of the same thing here. It's like we don't know how an asteroid wound up with nucleobases. Also, we don't really know how it happened. We don't know how what happened. There's a theory about crystals, about how certain crystals form in like tide pools or whatever, and it makes it so that chemicals are fit together in just the right way. But then there's another whole camp of thinking about how, well, if you try to do this unintentionally with sort of through the theory of chaos, which is like basically you just throw a whole bunch of stuff in a system and mix it around for a while until something happens, that no one's doing that. It's just happening because that's how stuff just collides. And it's the billiard ball version, right? It's this materialist view. There are some people who have kind of, raised a finger and said, well, maybe that could happen, but according to our models, it would take trillions and trillions of years, and the universe just isn't old enough for that to have happened. So how did we get here is the question that keeps coming over and over and over and over again. And it's also, but the problem is, and this is why I think it's interesting, and I love your annoyed response, because it's like, yeah, there's so little here, because like, even if aliens came down and they landed on the White House lawn and they said, this is where you came from, we would still be like, well, but yeah, but where'd they come from? And there's still this confusion. And even if God himself parted the heavens and like descended in a pillar of light and said, my children, you are all my children. I have created this world, and here is the true religion. We'd all be like, great. And then at some point, some idiot would ask, well, but where did you come from? Like, there's no answer here. And so it is annoying to hear that there's an asteroid full of chemicals. It's like, I don't care. I don't care.
Okay, here's why I care.
Thank you,
The
Tom.
prevailing scientific view in the past is that we are the product of just a trillion to one odds.
Right.
Oh,
right.
how utterly improbable that this had to happen and this had to happen and then that had to happen, all in the specific order in order to produce us brainy, horny hominids. And wow, it's just the odds against that. It's just overwhelming odds against that. Almost miraculous, except it's not, because we're scientists. And then this thing is like, no, it probably the other way around. It was probably almost an inevitability that life is going to assert itself and may, in whatever form, become aware, and conscious and intelligent. And this idea of seeding is actually, has a name, is panspermia, right? Where the helpful asteroid will crash with some good stuff and some amino acids and nucleotides, and maybe to get a little something going, a little something happening there, Yeah. And going back to Old Testament, the manna from heaven idea, the thing manifested, the thing being provided.
Wait a minute. Manifested. Is manna? Do
Manna
and manifested have anything to do with each other?
No,
I didn't think. I
does
didn't
not.
think so. But I would like them to. So let's just say they do.
Okay. The word manna literally translates to "what is it?" Because it was just a thing that appeared that they could bake or eat.
Just an asteroid with some nucleobases on it.
Yeah, could
right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Don't try to store them. Don't try to. You better make some life out of those things. They're just going to go.
So.
They're going to go bad.
Yeah, but fall it. Drop into a tide pool. Something's going to crawl out of it. And at some point something's going to crawl out, probably named Bill, I think, maybe. Or
Tom, here's where I think there's
Mallory,
a kind
amphibian.
of a convergence. I think there's a convergence between maybe my and Mal's annoyance and your take here, is that what you're suggesting is a kind of an anti-entropic universe, because something we know about life is that it is a great orderer. When you pour ink in a glass of water, it loses its form instantly and disperses throughout this is the entropy, the theory of entropy, is that things will go from a state of order to a state of chaos.
Right.
It's the reason that you gotta, like, there was a whole rash of astrophysicists a few years ago who were talking about the heat death of the universe, and they were like, we figured out what's going to happen in 45 billion trillion years, and it's when the last black holes are going to just unwind, and the last neutron stars are going to cool off and wink out of existence because they got too cold. And it was so, people got real excited about this. They're like, we know how the universe is going to end. And I was like, this is
futurist edgelords.
This is such bullshit. Like, because like not only like it takes so many things for granted that it's like not even. I mean, it's like a nice thought experiment. Like this is cool, but like to posit it is like, oh, this is like, now we know because we've done the math and now we know how the universe is going to end. I was like, this is insane. It also, because one of the but and the reason I bring it up is critically one of the really important axioms that it takes for granted is this law of entropy, that everything is always trending toward chaos and that anything built is going to come unbuilt. And I think like entropy is true insofar as anything is true in certain contexts, but I don't think that entropy is the governing law of the universe, and life is the great antithesis to entropy, because what life does is it orders things.
It proliferates.
It builds things. It takes energy and it takes material and it puts it into forms that persist way longer than they would persist outside of the sort of like the intent of life. Whatever you're talking about. You're talking about bugs, you're talking about bees building beehives, you're talking about, whatever. Like us. We're the human beings in a certain frame, we are the ultimate anti-entropy life forms. Like we are
creating order.
We want so badly for things to last. Most of the stuff we build doesn't last, but for sure, it lasts a hell of a lot longer than it would if we didn't build it. And
regardless, it's regenerative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is
right.
super anti-entropic. And so I think that to your point about like life will happen. We've got nucleotides in places, and they're just going to happen. Like life is going to spring forth. It really cuts directly against this idea of entropy being the master sort of principle of the universe. And if that's true, if anti-entropic forces are equally powerful or more powerful than entropic forces, then what is the nature of the universe? And it's certainly not the one that we have been railing against since we started the show, which is very materialistic and deterministic.
Mm-hmm. I think all objects are manifestations of thought forms or thought forms.
All objects are manifestations of thought forms. Can you unpack that for me a little bit more?
I think it just has to do with this idea of intention, and consciousness is the nature of the universe. And that the dream that we're living with apparently solid things like, microphones and t-shirts are simply sort of thought form projections that we mistake as being reality. It's a little deep to get... No, but
I would like
thanks,
to...
Tom.
It goes,
all right, well, let's
back
close
to
for today.
It begins with the word, you know what I mean? It's, Anyway.
Yeah.
See it, say it,
So
create
people going like, wood rots, entropy,
right.
pond.
My body is getting
whatever.
so old.
Yeah, right. Yes, that's right. All things arise and pass away, but that's not the actual thing,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's other wood it's regenerating itself. Literally, there's a platonic tree.
Let me
that
ask you
never
guys
dies.
a question. Let me ask you guys a question to ponder until our next episode. Does a tree die because it stops paying attention to itself? All right, let's be done. Let's be done for the day.
Call it.
And I want to say thanks for listening, everyone, and I want to say thanks, Tom and Mal, for joining me again on this wonderful conversation. This has been so freaking fun, as always. It's like the reason that I wake up in the morning.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I wake up in the morning
lead a
for
sad
coffee.
life.
I have coffee.
Oh yeah, you're right, Tom. That's way less sad. So here's some things we'd like you to do.
I have to tell you this right now. Some woman took ayahuasca and had a conversation with the spirit of coffee. Did I tell you guys this story?
What?
Yes.
This
is a story that I've heard.
What was the personality of the
She
spirit of coffee?
Very pleasant, apparently. Very pleasant female who was worried that coffee wasn't given as much veneration as it deserved and was just sort of being like cheapened. And that, yes, she got really fucked up and spoke to the spirit of coffee. And
I'm here for that.
I get it. I absolutely. Yeah. And I commune
100%.
with the spirit of coffee.
Starbucks is the great antichrist of coffee.
Okay. Thank you.
So, all right. If you're listening, if you're here and you have been joining us for this, thank you so much. We really just please rate the show. Just rate it. It really does help. Just more people find it when it gets more ratings. It's just one of those things that's true about algorithms, and it takes like 3 seconds. So please just go do it. Thank you.
Second, and probably more important, please subscribe to us on Substack if you haven't. I mean, you sure can subscribe on other podcast platforms, but this is the one where we live, and it's way easier to talk to you and for you to talk to us over on Substack. So please get over there.
Also, pursuant to that, please share your stories. Seriously.
Yeah,
because we know you have them, and this is not a one-way thing. Like, we are interested in conversations. We're interested in data aggregation. We're interested in the many expressions of the unknowable. So we would love to hear your experience. Please and thank you.
Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you.